Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to part 7 for our platform shooter series. In this video, you're probably going to be just a little bit mad at me because by the end of this video, we're going to have the exact same working game that we currently have. But hopefully you will have learned something about how passing arguments into scripts in GameMaker Studio 2 works, and how you could potentially use an array to pass in an argument as kind of by reference, even though GameMaker doesn't actually allow you to do that. So let me show you the benefit of this. In our enemies right now, we have our move push function, script I should say, and we have our move script. And the only difference between these two scripts here is that we're using H speed and V speed and H speed push and V speed push. So that's a little annoying. Why would we have two scripts that basically do the exact same thing? Why not fix that and pass in our arguments so that we can handle that differently? So let's see how we might go about doing that. Let's delete our move push here. Delete. Yes. And we'll just keep our move right here. But inside of here, why not pass in some variables, right? We can pass in the variables and then we can change them individually. So we'll do at, let's see, at param h speed param v speed. And then we'll do something like this, var underscore, let's see, var h speed. Let's do underscore h speed for this local variable equals, you know what, since it's local, I'm just going to call it h speed like this. H speed equals argument 0, var v speed equals argument 1. Okay, so we're passing those in. Instead of modifying these values right here, we can just modify our h speed like this, since we're passing it in, and do the same for our v speed. Okay, now we need to find every single place that we've called our move script, right? And the easiest way to do that is to do Control Shift F and search for move. And actually, maybe we're going to put the parentheses after it. That way we only get scripts. So down here, you should see these. These are lists of the places where we've called move. So you can see in our enemy, we called move right here. So let's pass in our h speed underscore and v speed underscore, right? And right here as well. And that is, where is it? I don't see it. Oh, right here. Okay. And we'll pass in h speed underscore and v speed underscore, right? Now we also need to find the places where we've called move push. So we'll find these, move push, right here, and we'll just change this to move. But instead, we'll pass in h speed push underscore, right? And v speed push underscore. Then we'll come here, and this is another place where we did it. We'll pass in h speed push underscore and v speed push underscore. Okay. Okay, so that was a little sneaky because we used a search, right, to find the places where we've done it. If you've missed one, then it's just going to give you an error when you run the game, and it should tell you in the output exactly where that error occurred. I might get an error too, you never know. Yep, it looks like in script. Oh yeah, I passed in that, but I didn't switch it to move. I still had it as a move push. So yeah, if you get an error message, just double click on it. It should take you where you need to fix it, and just make sure you have move and then passing in whether or not it's the push force or the normal force. And you can see this seems to be working. And I died. I gotta be better at this game, right? Let's shoot these guys really fast. Okay, it seems to be working, but there's an issue here. Watch this. See how fast I fall? My guy falls really fast. The reason is because when we're colliding with a surface inside of our move script, we're trying to set our horizontal speed and our vertical speed to 0 after we collide with something, right? However, when we set this right here, it sets this temporary variable. It doesn't actually set the variable, the instance variable that we have inside of our player. We want it to set the where is our h speed and v speed? Ah, right here. We want it to set our h speed, but it's not setting that. It's just setting this one right here. So we could do h speed underscore, but then it won't work with our move push, right? Doesn't work anymore. So that's the issue that we have, because we can't pass in a parameter or an argument as a reference. And when you pass in something as a reference, it allows you to modify that inside the script. Now there is a workaround to this, and I am not going to claim that this is like best practice. It is useful in this one situation, and I think it's cool to use it here. Whether or not you think it's best practice, you can kind of decide that for yourself. But let me show you the workaround for this. The workaround is, instead of passing in an h speed and a v speed, what we can pass in is a speed. And this speed will be an array that has both a horizontal speed and a vertical speed. So we'll just say var speed underscore equals, well, let's see, we already have, oh, that's fine. We'll do it this way, I think. Equals argument 0. Okay. And instead of modifying h speed plus h speed here, we would do speed underscore and then do brackets around it to make an array and 0. And that would be our horizontal speed. And a way to make this a little bit easier to understand, you could do var h and v. Well, set them both equal to 0. Var h equals 0. Var v equals 1. Okay, so you could create these temporary variables like this, and you could say h right here. So speed h. Now that's our horizontal speed right here. So let's put this inside of here, and here, and here. Now for this spot, we can't just do this, because this will modify the temporary variable. We end up with the same problem that we had before, even though we're using an array. However, in GameMaker and GameMaker Studio 2, we can actually modify the original array and not this one if we do the @ symbol here. So @ this is an accessor, and it allows us to modify the original value that was passed into this script. But that only works if it was an array. This only works if we set it up as an array. Now, I've been using the word array a lot, and I want to make sure that I explain it just in case you haven't heard of what an array is. So real quick, let's get into a small example of what an array is. If you already know what an array is, you can kind of skip through this section, go to the next part. But an array is basically a variable. So, you know, before we could have like b equals 1, right? And then you could do b2 equals 2 or whatever. And you could create these variables like this, but an array is a variable that can contain more than one value. So you could say b1 equals 5, b2 equals 7 for whatever reason, b8 equals 20. So an array allows you to hold multiple values. It's just a variable. It's just a variable, but it has multiple different values in it. Inside of GameMaker Studio 2, you can actually create them like this. B equals 5, 7, 9. And then if you wanted to access one of these values inside of it, you'd say, oh, I want to get the 7. Well, the 7 is the second element of the array, but it starts counting at 0. So you'd say B1 equals 10. And then instead of this being 7, it would be set to 10 because we're changing the value of B1, which is right here. Okay, so that's all an array is. They sound scary, but they're not too bad. So once we have this array and we're able to access it like this, we're going to update our v speed too. So speed v right here. And this, once again, looks a little bit scarier than it actually is. Then make sure when we're setting the speed to 0 here, we use an at. So we'll just do at like this. Okay, now we've got that set up. Our move variable is set up the way we need it to be, but we need to update our speeds here. So we're going to change this to be just speed, and we can get rid of our v speed, and then we can just change this to be max underscore speed. Okay, so we're making quite a few changes here. And this is inside of our player, so let's go into the player's movement right here. And we need to change, and the best way to do this actually is just going to be using our find replace again. So type in hspeed underscore. And we should get a whole bunch of places where we're using that. So we're going to have to change all of these places right here. And I'm going to provide the source to the changes at the end of this video if you just want to download it and not have to change all these values yourself. But let's come into here where we set hspeed equal to 0. This is actually inside the enemy, so we're just going to change this so it says speed equals, but we don't want it to be 0 anymore, and we need to get rid of the enemy's speed value there. We'll change that later. We need this to be an array, so 0 and 0, like this. If you're in GameMaker Studio 1.4, you can't do that anymore. So if you're not using GameMaker Studio 2, you'll have to do this. Speed 0 equals 0 and speed 1 equals 0. You'll have to do it this way in GameMaker Studio 1.4. You can't do this faster way. So anyways, then we can change our speed push here as well and set this to 0 and 0 like that. Okay. Now we're looking good everywhere else. Let's look for our next one. I'm going to get rid of that for now. Now inside of here, instead of doing hspeed push, we'll just change this to speed push for both of these. But we can use 0 and 1. Now like I said before, if you want to, you can, you know what, there's actually a really good way to deal with the 0 and 1 thing here if you want to do it this way. Now, this is kind of throwing a lot at you right away, but let's create a new script and name this enums. I think that should be fine. And we can create an enum here. Well, let's actually use macros. So I'm going to rename this and just call it macro. That'll be fine. I just don't want the enum name. So we'll call this macro h. We'll set it equal to 0. Macro v. Set it equal to 1. And these values right here, you don't need an equal sign here. Macros are a little bit different. And they're only created at the very start of the game. We don't even have to call this script, although we do have to name it macros. Rename. We can't just name it macro. That would be bad. And we can drag it above our move script right here. We don't even have to call it. GameMaker Studio 2 already knows it's there. If you're in GameMaker Studio 1.4, that place will be different as well. You'll need to go in. There will be a thing in your resources where you can create macros. You'll see it. And you can easily create 2 macros there as well. So once we've gotten those macros created, that makes it a little bit easier for us to set these values. So inside of our movement here, we'll just take off the H from all these. And on the speed ones, we'll just do the parentheses and then H, like that. And it'll be red because that's the color of macros. Okay, I think that's good. Remove the V from this one and change it to speed V, like that. Speed V. Move the H and the V. We're gonna get error messages because we're changing so much stuff. That's okay though. This will be this kind of refactoring process improves our move script. So we only have to have the one. That looks good. Don't need to change anything there. This one looks good as well for creating the bullet, so that's good. Taking damage, that all looks good. I think our player's fixed now. Oh, we need to make sure and set the player's speed to an array. So make sure that your player's speed is an array. Its max speed doesn't have to be. You could do it that way, but you don't have to. Okay. Now our search results are looking really ugly. So I'm just going to kind of do this manually. Speed push, and we can do V and H here. Oops, this one's the horizontal one, so H and V. Horizontal, vertical, and then in our move too, now that we have these, we don't actually have to use those. We can just let it use the macro versions. Should update. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and our enemy, come back into the enemy. Most everything is going to be in the enemy now that we need to change. So we already have our speed and our speed push. We're going to need a max speed underscore, and I think we set this to 1. And then we can come into our step, user event state, collision with the bullet. Here we go. We need to change this to the array version. The V and the H. That looks good. We already changed that one, so that looks good. Our movement state, we need to change these. And make sure that this is max speed now instead of speed. Max speed. There's a lot of changes for a beginner. So if you get stuck or frustrated with this, don't worry, that's okay. Just download the source for the updated changes. As long as you understand the concept here, that's what's important. If you want to debug a little bit better, that could be good too. Oh, we need this to be just speed, like that. But the important thing is that you understand the concept here, that changing this speed from H speed and V speed as separate variables into an array that's one variable allows us to access this variable in a special way inside of our move script to make sure that setting it to 0 here works. And that's the basics of what we're trying to do right now. So come back into the enemy, and we need to change this and this. I don't want this right here, it's in the way right now. And we'll just make this the horizontal one and the vertical one, like this. Place meeting, same here. Got to change all these, speed push, to make them updated for the correct. To use the array. Not sure why we're getting, oh, those are these breakpoints? Why do I have errors here? Move. I shouldn't have an error there. I guess we'll find out in a second why I do. Interesting. We might have to try and run the game to find out why there are errors there. It's like I'm missing a bracket or something. Like, we'll see. Okay, so in our attack state, we don't have to change any of this, it looks like. In the hit state, yeah, we do have to change this. Make sure and change this to use the array variables. So this one's a V right here. This one's a V. This one's a V for vertical. H, V, and we should be good. Now, for some reason, this is giving us an error. Okay, so silly me, I forgot that because we changed our move script to just take in a single argument because the array contains both elements, right? I forgot to change that. So inside of our move here, we actually only need to just pass in our speed push like that. So it makes our move script look a lot nicer there as well. So if you try and run the game, you're going to get all the places where this happened and should be able to change it pretty easily. So just make sure and pass in either speed push or speed based on which one we're trying to move. And this is useful because it gives us the ability to have one move script but actually affect all of our motions that we want. And this should fix the problem of falling fast that we were having before. Let's check and make sure. Oh, I'm no longer jumping. So I want to check that out and see inside the player what I did wrong there. Let's come into the player. And in our player movement, my guess is we're not affecting. Yeah, we're still trying to do V speed there instead of just speed underscore brackets V. There we go. Now I can jump. I'm gonna die if I'm not careful. And we don't fall fast now. We're falling at the correct speed when we go off the edges. So there you go. It's working exactly how we had it working at the very start of this video. But in my opinion, it's a little bit better to set it up this way because then we can have this one script to move anything. And you can actually use this move script for anything inside of your game. You could use it to move, and it would automatically make that thing collide with walls and stuff. So if you wanted to have a moving platform or something, that platform could use this move script and it would automatically work with walls. You could, and it doesn't matter what kind of force you pass into the script, it'll still work correctly the way it's intended and collide correctly with the walls. So I think that's useful and something interesting about how GameMaker handles arrays inside of scripts and how you can modify the original value. So hopefully you learned something from this video. In the next video, what I'm planning on doing for this game, let's talk about that for just a second before I end this video. So what I'm planning on doing for this game is think Mario Brothers, like the old Mario Brothers where the enemies came out of the pipes and there was the POW in the middle and you'd jump on them and the room looped on itself. That's kind of what I want to do for this series. So I want to get it to a point where we have a few different enemies coming out of pipes kind of, and the player can move around inside of the looping level and kill them and has a high score. There's only going to be one level in the game, but it'll be kind of like a small high score game. And that's what I want to do for this series. Obviously, you can take the code and the things that I show you and create a bigger game from that. You know, you could create hundreds of levels and do whatever you wanted with it. But for this series, obviously that's not feasible for me to do. So it's going to be a smaller series, but kind of just to give you guys what I'm expecting to create with this series and kind of what you'll be expecting going forwards with this series. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I've got more on the way. If you liked it, be sure and give it a thumbs up and share it and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys later.